I remember the day I met Sarah like it was yesterday. How could I forget? It was one of those rare moments when everything just clicked. We were at a mutual friend's dinner party, and I never expected it to turn into anything more than a casual evening. But when our eyes met, something shifted. It wasn't instant attraction or love at first sight. No, it was more subtle than that. But it was undeniable. There was an energy, a connection, like we'd been on parallel paths for so long, just waiting for the moment to finally cross. At that point in my life, I had a pretty clear idea of what I wanted. I was in my early 30s, and despite the ups and downs I'd faced, I thought I had life figured out. I had my career under control, a group of good friends, and a family that I loved but kept at arm's length. I was doing well enough on my own. I wasn't desperate for a relationship, and I certainly didn't need someone to complete me. I was comfortable in my life. Happy even. I had this belief bubble, a kind of personal blueprint for how life and love should work. It was simple. I believed that the key to a good relationship was finding someone you were genuinely compatible with, someone you could share a future with, but not in some fairy tale sense. I wasn't looking for perfection, but I thought I knew what was realistic. As long as we communicated well, supported each other, and kept things grounded in reality, love would work. I believed that if you could build a solid foundation, you could weather any storm. And that's how I thought Sarah and I were going to be. She seemed like the kind of person I could talk to for hours without getting bored. She was kind, intelligent, and genuinely interested in me. The kind of woman who didn't expect you to put her on a pedestal, but just wanted honesty and respect. I could see it all in her eyes, the same dreams, the same values, the same life goals. We were on the same page, and that gave me a sense of peace. We quickly fell into a rhythm together. And I thought that was it. I thought, this is the way it's supposed to be. We'd spend our weekends getting to know each other better, traveling to nearby cities for quick getaways, and talking late into the night about everything and nothing. Life with Sarah was easy, comfortable, fulfilling. It was exactly what I thought a relationship should feel like. It wasn't a roller coaster of emotions, it wasn't filled with drama or crazy highs and lows. It was calm. It was stable. It was everything I had imagined love to be when I finally found the right person. I wasn't naive though. I knew relationships took work, but I figured we were on the right track. No relationship is perfect, right? But if we could just keep communicating, keep working together, everything would fall into place. I believed in the simplicity of love. Find someone who makes you laugh, someone who respects your boundaries, someone who wants the same things you do. That was the recipe for a successful relationship. You didn't need to overthink it. And Sarah? She was the perfect fit. I honestly thought I had found the one. But I was living in a bubble of certainty, where I believed that love was straightforward. I thought that because we were in sync, because we shared so much in common, because the future seemed so clear, we would always be on this path together, growing and evolving in harmony. I convinced myself that as long as we stuck to the plan, worked hard, communicated openly, supported each other, there was no reason why we couldn't have a happy, stable life. It was a comforting belief, one that I held onto tightly. There was no room for doubt. The relationship felt safe, secure, easy. And that's what I thought life with Sarah would be, safe and secure. No bumps in the road. No huge obstacles to overcome. We were on the same page, and I had no reason to believe that would change. In that moment, I had everything figured out. I was in control of my life, my future, and my relationships. I had a plan. I had a belief in the way things were supposed to go. Life, I thought, was about to unfold the way I expected it to. But sometimes, life doesn't care about the plans we make or the bubbles we build around ourselves to feel safe. Sometimes, it comes along with unexpected shifts, subtle at first, but eventually impossible to ignore. And that's where everything would start to change. But at that moment, I couldn't see it. I couldn't foresee the storm that was quietly brewing just beyond the horizon, waiting to challenge everything I thought I knew about love, relationships, and myself. When Sarah and I first met, it felt like something out of a storybook. I mean, everything was just right. It wasn't love at first sight. I don't believe in that kind of thing, but it was like we clicked in a way I hadn't experienced before. From our first conversation, I could tell we had a connection that was deeper than anything I'd ever had. It wasn't just about attraction, though that was there too. It was the way we talked, the way we understood each other without having to explain ourselves. It felt like we were two halves of a whole that had been waiting to come together. I had this idea in my head about what a perfect relationship looked like, and suddenly, I saw it in front of me. The cozy evenings spent curled up on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched movies or talked for hours about everything and nothing. The way she laughed at my dumb jokes, or the way we could go for long walks in the park and just enjoy each other's company in silence, comfortable in the stillness. In those early days, everything felt effortless. It was like we were building something together that was meant to last. I remember when we first started making plans for the future. I had always been skeptical about talking about forever so soon, but with her, it felt different. We'd talk about where we'd live, how we wanted to travel, what kind of home we'd have someday. We'd joke about what our kids would be like, her sarcastic sense of humor combined with my laid-back nature, and how we'd raise them with both love and discipline. It wasn't just daydreaming, it felt real. We were both so excited about the possibilities of our life together. I felt like I was finally with someone who got it, who understood the importance of building a future, of supporting each other's dreams, and of making life together an adventure. I'll admit, I started to picture our lives as this seamless progression. We'd have our ups and downs, sure, but in the end, we'd be one of those couples who'd been together for decades, looking back on all the memories and milestones, sharing a lifetime of inside jokes and experiences. I thought that was the dream, that no matter what happened, we'd always have each other. It was easy to believe because everything felt so right. I thought we had cracked the code to what love was supposed to be, that we were on the path to something unbreakable, something that would stand the test of time. I'd think about our future together and feel this overwhelming sense of peace. I'd think, this is it. This is the love story that ends with the two of us getting old together, sitting on a porch somewhere, holding hands in silence because words wouldn't be necessary anymore. We'd have built something solid, something unshakable. I wanted to believe that, with her by my side, nothing could tear us apart. I wanted to believe that love like this was a given, that once you found someone who you clicked with, it was just a matter of time before everything else fell into place. And for a while, it did. Every day felt like an extension of that dream, that perfect life we were building together. We made each other better. When she was with me, she encouraged me to go after things I'd been too scared to try before. And when I was with her, I saw how passionate and driven she was, how she worked so hard for the things that mattered to her. We both brought out the best in each other. We were like two puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly, completing each other in a way that felt so right, it was hard to question. There were moments where I thought, this is what everyone else must be missing. Why wasn't the whole world experiencing love like this? We had it all: compassion, mutual respect, shared dreams. The future seemed like it would be so clear for us, so simple. There was no doubt in my mind that we were headed in the same direction, and that direction was nothing short of happiness. But here's the thing about dreams. They're beautiful when they're unfolding, when you're wrapped up in the illusion of what's possible. But I began to realize that sometimes, the dream itself can be a trap. The image of what you think love is supposed to be, perfect, effortless, unchanging, can cloud your vision of what it actually is. And when the cracks start to show, when life inevitably challenges that ideal, you're forced to confront the reality that no relationship is perfect. No dream is without its flaws. At the time, though, I couldn't see that. I was so wrapped up in the idea of this perfect future that I ignored the signs that something was shifting. I convinced myself that all we had to do was keep doing what we were doing and everything would stay the same, smooth, easy, effortless. I didn't realize that I was building up this vision of perfection in my head, and in doing so, I was setting both of us up for disappointment. Because no matter how much I believed in this idealized version of love, it wasn't the whole truth. And that was when the first cracks started to appear. At first, everything seemed perfect. Or at least, it should have. We had everything that people dream about: deep conversations, laughter, quiet moments of comfort, and a love that felt like it was meant to be. But for some reason, something didn't feel right. It wasn't anything Sarah had done, not exactly. It was more of a subtle shift inside me, like a crack in the foundation of what I thought was an unshakable bond. At first, I ignored it. I told myself it was just the normal ups and downs of any relationship. But as the days went on, I couldn't shake this feeling that I was becoming someone else, or that I was losing a part of myself. It wasn't her, it was me. I was changing in ways I couldn't explain. And that terrified me. Every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the person I used to be. I couldn't even pinpoint when it started. But something inside me was shifting, and the more I ignored it, the louder it became. I began to feel like I was walking through life on autopilot. I was there physically, but emotionally, mentally, I wasn't fully present. There were moments when I would catch myself zoning out, lost in thought while Sarah was talking to me. I would nod, smile, pretend I was listening, but deep down, I wasn't fully there. And I knew that wasn't fair to her. It wasn't that I didn't love her, it was just that I felt disconnected, like there was a wall growing between us. Even though nothing had changed on the surface. The weird thing was, I didn't know why I was feeling this way. Everything seemed perfect. We had plans, shared dreams for the future, and spent time together that I used to cherish. But there was this gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't that I didn't care anymore, or that I didn't want to make it work. It was like I was subconsciously pulling away, and I didn't understand why. The more I reflected on it, the more I realized that it wasn't just me becoming distant, it was as if I was starting to see things differently. I began to question everything about our relationship, even the things that had once seemed so perfect. Were we really in sync, or was I just convincing myself that we were? Was I truly happy? Or was I simply settling into the comfort of what we had? And if I wasn't happy, what was the root of it? I didn't have any concrete reasons, no big fights or dramatic moments that would explain this feeling. But there was an undeniable tension that hung between us, even in the quietest moments. I started to notice the little things that used to make me happy felt different. We'd go out for dinner, and I'd find myself looking at the clock, wondering how long it would be until I could escape the conversation. There were evenings where I would sit across from her, and instead of feeling like I was having a meaningful connection, I felt like we were simply going through the motions. My laughter didn't come as easily. I wasn't as present, as engaged, as I had been before. And every time I pulled away, I felt a deeper sense of guilt. How could I do this to her? How could I be so distant when she was still giving me everything? The worst part was that I couldn't tell her any of this. How do you explain to the person you love that something doesn't feel right, but you can't even explain what's wrong? How do you tell someone that you're struggling, but you don't know why or what the issue even is? I didn't want to hurt her or make her think that I didn't care. The truth was, I cared more than anything. But there was a part of me that felt like I was suffocating in this relationship. It wasn't about her, it was about me. I was getting lost in the idea of what our relationship should be rather than what it actually was. And no matter how hard I tried to shake it, that suspicion gnawed at me, getting louder with every passing day. I found myself asking the hardest question of all. Do I love her the way she deserves to be loved? I couldn't answer it. Every time I tried to look inside myself for clarity, all I found was confusion. I loved her, but there was this piece of me that felt unfulfilled, and I couldn't explain why. I wasn't sure if it was because I wasn't being true to myself, or if there was something deeper inside me that I wasn't ready to confront. And then I realized the worst part: this wasn't just about me. The way I was pulling away, the way I was becoming distant, it wasn't fair to her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I couldn't keep living in this confusion, hoping it would just go away. Something had to give. And that was when I realized I had to face it. I was losing myself, and if I didn't find a way to fix it, I might lose her too. As time went on, the fear began to creep in slowly. At first, it was just a whisper, an unsettling feeling in the back of my mind that I tried to ignore. But it wasn't long before that whisper turned into a constant roar. Every day, I found myself asking the same question: will I ever be enough? And the worst part was, I didn't have an answer. I looked at Sarah, and I saw everything she was: strong, confident, caring, someone who seemed to have her life together. And then there was me, someone who was falling apart inside, barely holding things together, trying to convince myself that I was capable of being the partner she needed. Every time I looked into her eyes, I wondered if she could see through me, if she could tell how much I was struggling. And deep down, I was terrified that she could. The truth was, I didn't feel like I was enough for her. No matter how hard I tried, it felt like I was constantly coming up short. There were times when I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror, feeling like I was failing her in every way. I kept thinking, how could someone like her want someone like me? I wasn't the person she deserved. I couldn't provide the stability, the emotional depth, the security she needed. And the more I tried to convince myself that I could be the man she wanted, the more I realized I was only fooling myself. The fear was suffocating. It wasn't just about being in a relationship. It was about the feeling of not measuring up to the version of myself that I thought I should be. I was carrying so many unresolved issues from my past: regrets, insecurities, past failures, and they were starting to weigh down on me. I began to question everything about myself: my worth, my ability to love, my ability to be a good partner. I had built up this image of what it meant to be in a healthy, successful relationship, and I just didn't feel like I was there yet. And the fear grew more intense as I watched Sarah become more successful in her own life. She was chasing her dreams, taking risks, building something amazing, and I couldn't help but feel like I was standing still. I was stuck in my own head, overwhelmed by doubts about whether I would ever be able to catch up. How could I possibly be enough for someone like her when I wasn't even enough for myself? The more I saw her thriving, the more I felt like I was holding her back. I became consumed by the thought that if I didn't figure myself out, I was going to lose her, and not because she didn't care about me, but because she deserved more. She deserved someone who was whole, someone who wasn't weighed down by baggage, someone who was ready to give her everything she needed. And every time I looked at her, I felt like I was letting her down. It wasn't just about the relationship. It was about who I was, or who I wasn't, and the fear that I would never become the person I needed to be. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my fear wasn't about losing her. It was about the fear of never being good enough. The fear of not being capable of loving her the way she deserved. The fear that no matter how hard I tried, I would never measure up to the version of myself I envisioned. It was a fear that gnawed at me, day after day, and it eventually became impossible to ignore. I wanted to believe that love was enough, that if we loved each other, we could overcome anything. But deep down, I knew that love alone wasn't always enough. I needed to work on myself. I needed to face the parts of myself I had been avoiding, the self-doubt, the insecurities, the trauma I had never healed from. And I realized, for the first time, that I couldn't ask Sarah to take that journey with me. Not unless I was ready to face my fears and become the person I knew I could be, not for her, but for myself. And that hurt her. It hurt both of us. I was slowly becoming someone I didn't recognize, and the more I stayed, the worse it got. I wasn't being honest with myself, and I wasn't being fair to her. I realized that the longer I stayed in the relationship, the more I was holding her back from the life she deserved, a life filled with someone who was fully present, someone who wasn't weighed down by the past. So, one evening, I decided it was time. I took a deep breath, picked up my phone, and sent her a message asking if we could meet. My heart was racing. I knew what I had to do, but I couldn't shake the fear in my chest. I kept telling myself, this is for the best. This is what she needs. What you both need. You'll get through this. But still, there was this crushing weight on my chest, like I was about to lose something that meant everything to me. When I saw her that evening, it felt like the world slowed down. I could see it in her eyes, the confusion, the uncertainty. I wasn't sure what to say at first. The words felt stuck, like they didn't belong to me. How do you tell someone you love that you're breaking their heart? How do you explain that it's not them, but you, that you're not the person they need, that you can't be the partner they deserve? I told her that I needed to step away, that I wasn't able to be the man she needed right now. I said it as gently as I could. But even then, the pain was obvious in my voice. I told her I had to work on myself, that I needed time to heal from things I hadn't fully dealt with in my life. And I knew, as I said those words, that I was breaking her heart. I was breaking mine too. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. I could see the hurt in her eyes, the shock, the disbelief. I wanted to take it back. I wanted to tell her that I was wrong, that I could change. But I knew deep down that I couldn't. Not right then. Not in the state I was in. And the truth was, if I stayed, I was just going to hurt her more in the long run. I also knew I couldn't keep hiding behind the fear of losing her. It was easier to stay in the relationship because I was afraid of being alone, afraid of what my life would look like without her. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the right reason to stay. I had to let go of my own fears and face the truth. I had to face the reality that love wasn't just about being with someone, it was also about being whole. As we parted that night, the weight of the decision hit me hard. I walked away, but my heart was heavy, like I was leaving a piece of myself behind. I wondered if I'd ever get over the pain, or if I'd ever get the chance to fix what I had broken. And as I got into my car, I couldn't stop thinking about the future we both just lost. But I also knew that sometimes, in order to move forward, you have to let go of the things you love most. It wasn't about giving up. It was about giving both of us the chance to become the people we were supposed to be. It was about finding the courage to walk away, even though it hurt more than anything. But deeper than the sadness was guilt. Guilt for hurting her. Guilt for thinking that I could walk away and still be okay. Guilt for not being strong enough to fix myself before it was too late. There were so many things I wished I had said to her, so many things I wanted to explain. But it was too late for that. I had already made the decision. I had already walked away. The hardest part was seeing her face the day I told her. The look in her eyes, shock, confusion, pain. I knew I had broken her heart, and that hurt more than anything. I didn't want to be the cause of her pain. But I knew deep down that if I didn't step away, I would only continue to hurt her more in the long run. The truth was, I wasn't the man I needed to be for her at that moment. And I couldn't keep pretending I was. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with tears in my eyes, feeling like I had made the worst mistake of my life. I asked myself over and over if there was another way, if I could have found a way to make it work. But the truth was, I didn't know. And as much as I wanted to call her, to tell her I was sorry and beg her to take me back, I knew I had to give both of us the space to heal. I had to face my demons, and she had to face hers. Even now, looking back, it still hurts. Letting go of someone you love is never easy. But sometimes you have to do it to give them the chance to grow. And to give yourself the chance to become the person you're meant to be. Then, something unexpected happened. A few months later, I heard about Sarah starting a nonprofit. She had taken the time I couldn't give her to focus on something that was deeply important to her. She had grown so much since we broke up, and honestly, it took me by surprise. I hadn't realized how much she needed that space to grow, just like I needed it. She found a new path, and seeing that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. It was then that I realized just how much we both had to learn from this experience. During the time apart, I took a hard look at myself. I realized that I wasn't just dealing with a breakup, I was dealing with years of unresolved pain and fear. I knew I had to work through it, or I'd never be able to fully love anyone, let alone myself. So, I focused on getting better. I started therapy. I reflected on my past. I worked on healing the parts of myself that I had ignored for too long. It wasn't easy. There were times when I wanted to quit. But I kept going because I knew I had to. Months later, I bumped into Sarah again. It was different this time. We weren't the same people anymore. We had both grown. There was no longer any tension, no regrets. We shared a simple conversation about life, about where we were, what we were doing. And it felt okay. It wasn't about getting back together. It was about recognizing that the love we shared didn't disappear, but had transformed. We had both changed. And that change had made us better people, both for ourselves and for the world around us. The truth about love that I learned is this: sometimes, letting go is the best way to move forward. Real love isn't about holding on when things get hard. It's about knowing when to step back and give each other space to grow. We can't love others the way they need unless we first love ourselves. And sometimes, love isn't about staying together forever. It's about allowing each other the chance to be who we're meant to be. That's the lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life.